Hi everyone, Omiya and Goel here with Dr. Sanjeev Goel,
Hi everyone.
and we're doing this Peak Sleep 101, talking about school starts and student performance.
We hope that after 20 minutes you're really going to understand the relationship between school starts and student performance. So, listen up.
So the first thing we'll be talking about is the importance of sleep. Then we'll be going to the current problem with the start time right now. Then we'll be talking about the solution to this. Then we'll be moving on to the evidence behind it, then what you can do, and then the next steps.
Each night when I go to sleep, I die. And the next day, when I wake up, I am reborn. People have always known how important sleep has played in our lives. We sleep about 1/3 of our lives away anyways. But it's only in the last 50 years that we have begun to understand the important impact that sleep has on our mental health and physical well-being.
So if there's anything you should take away from this presentation, it's that early school start times are directly linked to lower school performance.
Yes, just remember that if you don't remember anything else.
So why is sleep critical?
So sleep is critical for a number of things that we know. First of all, when you sleep, the body, the brain actually goes through some different stages, about 4 stages, and these stages are very important for information processing and memorization. So basically taking in what happened the previous day and incorporating that into your brain so you can learn from that, and then getting your brain ready for the next day. This helps regulate your mood as well so you don't get depressed. It's important for immune system functioning, healing of your body, as there's a big growth hormone spike that happens at nighttime as well. So sleep has a number of functions as well as we know, and if you don't sleep, that's been linked to a number of health problems.
So how do we assess sleep? So there's 3 ways. The first one is quantity. So that's the amount of sleep that we get. So research shows that the vast majority of people need about 7 to 9 hours. This changes depending on your age as well. Next is quality. So again, there's many stages in sleep. The most important are deep sleep and REM sleep, and they're important for restoration and new learning. And last is timing. So our chronotype is biologically based. There's 15% of the population has a early chronotype, and 15% has a later chronotype, and the other 70% is neutral. So basically, this morning chronotype means early chronotype means you get up earlier and you go to bed earlier, and a later chronotype means you get up later and you go to bed later.
Like night owls. Yeah. So do you want to just mention this critical part here? They're talking about teenagers, how much sleep they require. We can just use that thing to just. Oops. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, go back, yeah. Yeah, just click it. Let me just do that. Click that thing. So I just want to show you. Let's do that. Now go ahead. So you can see over there that teenagers need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. So on average, 9 hours of sleep. So I can tell you that most teenagers are not sleeping that much. Omiya?
Yeah, that's true.
Perfect. So this is a graph that explains basically the amount of sleep that teenagers are getting, and you can see that on school nights they're sleeping about 2 hours less than they're sleeping on non-school nights. So it's telling us that kids are not sleeping as much on school nights, probably because they got to get up early. You want to talk
So again,
about
this is why teenagers are predisposed to be night owls. Basically, when they reach a certain age in their teen years, their chronotype actually shifts a little bit later. So most of them do, they shift to have a later chronotype, and then it eventually shifts back to an earlier one.
Yeah, so about 70% of teenagers will become night owls, and that's just normal. That's not your kid being lazy or a teenager being lazy. That's just biology. That came a bit of a shock to me.
So again, 80% of teens are like chronotypes.
You want to explain this one? Why don't you explain this one? It's kind of a confusing graph here, but...
So basically, the black lines are adults or...
normal.
Yeah, your normal chronotype. And the red line is teenager's chronotype. So a later chronotype. And so basically, here you can see S, where sleep pressure is. It's basically the like how tired you are. So it rises as you are awake.
As the day goes on, you basically
exactly.
have more ability to fall asleep. So it basically becomes shorter for time for you to fall asleep the longer you're awake.
And this wavy line here, that's the C line. It's basically your chronotype. So again,
circadian rhythm.
Yeah, it's your circadian rhythm. That's right.
And so that there's a natural sleep-wake cycle. That's your body's internal clock, and you can see here how it's shifting with the teenager. The red is teenagers. How
Exactly.
the circadian clock is shifting, and so they end up with. Let me just quickly point that little click there. Oops, let's do that here. Just click that. And this is a really critical part in here. This little space. You see how there's a little line there, and that line over there, over here, is the deficit that's happening for a kid or a teenager that's getting up at 7 o'clock. It's like an adult getting up at 4 a.m.
And they never fully get to sleep off this pressure, so eventually it just keeps on building up. So it gets worse and worse.
Chronically sleep deprived. That's what this graph is saying. That the 7 o'clock in the morning doesn't give them enough time to fill that gap. Okay. I'm just going to get rid of those. Yeah.
Okay, so next we have a TED Talk here. 1 second.
This researcher just talks some very interesting things at around 5 minutes. We're just going to fast forward it for you. We may have to skip some of this, hopefully. Okay, we don't want to buy anything. That's great.
Advocates of sleep-friendly start times know that adolescence is a period of dramatic brain development, particularly in the parts of the brain that are responsible for those higher-order thinking processes, including reasoning, problem-solving, and good judgment. In other words, the very type of brain activity that's responsible for reining in those impulsive and often risky behaviors that are so characteristic of adolescence and that are so terrifying to us parents of teenagers. They know that, like the rest of us, when teenagers don't get the sleep they need, their brains, their bodies, and behavior suffer with both immediate and lasting effects. They can't concentrate. Their attention plummets. And many will even show behavioral signs that mimic ADHD. But the consequences of teen sleep loss go well beyond the classroom, sadly contributing to many of the mental health problems that skyrocket during adolescence, including substance use, depression, and suicide. In our work with teens from LA Unified School District, we found that teens with sleep problems were 55% more likely to have used alcohol in the past month. In another study with over 30,000 high school students, they found that for each hour of lost sleep, there was a 38% increase in feeling sad or hopeless, and a 58% increase in teen suicide attempts. And if that's not enough, teens who skimp out on sleep are at increased risk for a host of physical health problems that plague our country, including obesity, heart disease, and diabetes. Then there's the risk of putting a sleep-deprived teen with a newly minted driver's license behind the wheel. Studies have shown that getting 5 hours or less of sleep per night is the equivalent of driving with a blood alcohol content above the legal limit. Advocates of sleep-friendly
All right.
start times and
Perfect. This graph's really interesting. It's like, just like she was saying, is that there's evidence showing that if a teenager is sleeping less, like up to 5-6 hours, 4-5-6 hours, instead of the recommended 9 hours, they have an increase in risky behaviors, everything from drug use, antisocial behavior, risky driving, and so on. So there are definitely risks. Yeah, go ahead. You can just risks associated with sleeping less. Yeah, you can see that the difference. Yeah, you can see how much. Perfect. Yep. Okay, so let's look at what the evidence is showing. There's been a number of studies. Let's want to talk about this one.
Yeah, so the first one is a study by Dr. De La Iglesias. He basically conducted a study in Seattle where they took 2 schools and changed their start times from 7:50 to 8:45, so it's about an hour delay. Mm-hmm. And they found that the sleep amount increased by an average of 34 minutes. And that may not seem like a lot, but it is a good amount. Makes a big difference.
Yeah, 34 minutes. We're going to find out why in the next slide.
So they monitored the academic performance of biology students in a class. So one before the start time change and one after. And they found that there was a 4.5% increase in their academic performance. And again, that's not a lot, but it may not seem like a lot, but that can be the difference between an A and a B, or passing and failing.
And what was interesting about this is that they even looked at 2 different schools, one in an inner city and one in a more well-off area, and 2 different socioeconomic statuses, and children in the lower socioeconomic status had even greater benefits of having school start later. So we can just show this little Dr. Horacio De La Iglesias' video. I'll quickly just show you that. He speaks quite... we had against... We spoke to him about that. Oops. Oh yeah, that's right.
Sorry, my bad. Wait, my bad.
Yeah, he writes that one. Perfect. There we go.
Oh my god.
Oh, interesting. Yep. And here's Dr. De La Iglesias talking about the study in Seattle, which is pretty groundbreaking.
Horacio de la Iglesia, and I'm a professor at the Biology Department at the University of Washington, and our laboratory studies sleep and circadian rhythms. Teenagers in general, most parents say, well, at 10 p.m. it's time to go to bed, but they are biologically unable to fall asleep that early. But then the problem is that we're pushing them to wake up very early because they need to get to school early in the morning, so you're basically chopping off the last chunk of sleep they need. In 2016, the Seattle School District decided to delay the school start time for all secondary schools. They used to start at 7:50 and now they start at 8:45. You will be measuring your own sleep. And we decided to do a study on the sleep of the students in 2 high schools.
So you leave on 24 hours a day?
The study was using watches that measure activity and that can give you a very accurate measurement of when the students are sleeping. And the question was, is the sleep in the student changing with this changing schedule? The schools were Roosevelt High School, and the other school is Franklin High School. So what we saw is the students were waking up about 45 minutes later, but they were not necessarily going to bed later, and the net result was that they increased their sleep in about 35 minutes. Adding 35 minutes of sleep is really a significant increase. We confirmed there was an increase in their grades in those classes that we studied. We also found that the students are more alert, so they feel overall less sleepy. The attendance has actually improved, but has actually improved only in one of the schools with high representation of lower socioeconomic background. It is recommended that students sleep at that age about 9 hours, and hardly any teenager gets 9 hours of sleep a day. Most of the ones that we studied in 2016 got about 7 hours, and now they are getting about half an hour longer. So it's great to see that at least we get them half an hour closer to the intended goal.
Perfect. Yeah, he speaks very well. So you want to talk about the second study?
Yeah, so the next study took place in the UK. Basically, they in the first year, is year 0 here, they monitored the absence due to illness, so there was no change in the school start time. In year 1, this was the first year that they installed a delay in school start times. And so as you can see, the absence due to illness decreased compared to the national baseline. And then in the year 2, that was the second year that they had a later school start time. As you can see, there was a significant decrease in absences due to illness. And in year 3, the school had to go back to its early start time because the region had a policy where they had to go back to have an 8:15 start time. So as you can see, there was more absences due to illness again.
Is there one more slide on this one? Okay, let's just go. Let's just show the actual study. I'll just pull it up so people can see it. Yeah. Let's try it. There we go. There you go. This is by Kelly et al. And UK study happened in England. And so if you want to look at it, it's in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience. Okay, let's move on. I think we have a couple more other studies, right, that we want to just highlight?
Yes, here there was a study done in Germany by Dr. Winnebeck. And basically, what did they find?
Yeah, I think this study, they also found that they gave students a choice of flexible start time. And the ones who picked a later school start actually showed an improvement in their performance.
Yeah, exactly right here. They got to choose between it.
Yeah.
And so
frequently satisfied sleep improvements, both cognitive improvements and sleep improvements.
Overall sleep duration was not. They were highly, yeah.
Right. Okay. This is a study that happened in Germany, actually.
And then there was one more study, I believe. Here. This was done.
Yeah, this happened in the U.S. Air Force.
Yeah, basically, here they started the school day 15 minutes later, and they again found lots of improvement.
Significant positive effect here on student achievement. Significant, roughly equivalent to raising teacher quality by 1 standard deviation. So
That's cool.
Yeah. All right. So there's, we've shown about at least 4 studies, and I think there's another one in Florida which we don't even have up here. So there's really been a number of studies which show that there's improved school performance if we delay school to at least 8:39. And so a number of organizations have come out.
Yeah, such as the AMA, AAP,
Yep.
and CDC. 1 second.
Yeah, all of those. You can just open those.
So
up
again,
and
the
see.
AMA supports delayed school start times.
Yeah, perfect.
Again, here the CDC is saying school start too early,
Yeah.
and here
American Academy of Pediatrics is saying please don't start school before
yeah,
30.
insufficient sleep
Yeah.
is an important public health issue.
Right. So there's widespread there is widespread consensus that we need to be starting school later, at least past 8:30. Okay. So we talked about those. Let's move on. So what are the barriers?
So the first barrier is busing. So there's obviously some concern about arranging all the buses to go, because some schools they use the same buses, so arranging the start times so that they're staggered properly. That's a concern. Sports. Some sports teams have practices in the mornings or after school, so changing the start time can affect those practices and may affect the students. And then again, childcare. Again, after school, if they need to be taken care of, or even before school, it can be a problem.
Yeah, if the parent is going to work at 7:30 and school starts at 9, what do you do? Right. So those are some of the concerns. So, but we think, and we've talked to a lot of people, that because of COVID, this might be a perfect time to make some of these changes. Sometimes you need a big, reason to make a change like this. We know there's benefits, but so far there hasn't been enough motivation. But we're hoping that with COVID, we can make some of these changes that are much needed. So we have two things. You want to talk about them? You can help us.
We made a petition to ask the ministry and school board to change the school start time, so you can sign that.
I think we have at least 250 people who've signed all across Canada already.
And then we have a Facebook page, so you can keep up to date on any changes that we're making.
It's called School Start Later, and you just click on those. And Start School Later initiative. This is the actual petition. It's on change.org. Just make sure you go there, and then you can go back. Oh. I'm gonna have to do this again. There we go. We're just gonna open that slide up again because we realized when you do that. Alright, and so while we're just showing you this, while we're getting to the last page, this is a platform called Reactive. It's by a company called Vizetto. They're a Toronto-based IT startup that's basically revolutionizing the way that people are communicating online. This is like Zoom 5.0. People can collaborate and work online together in teams. So if you like this, contact me and I can give you more information on how you could potentially start using Reactive with your team or your students. And
Okay.
I think that might be it, right?
That's pretty much it.
All right, we need your help. So I hope you enjoyed this. Again, our email. This is thanks. So Dr. Goel at peakhuman.ca and Omiya at peakhuman.ca. And our website right now is www.peakhuman.ca. So reach out to us if you have any questions. We hope you enjoyed Peak Sleep 101. And let us know if there's any other topics you want us to do. Thanks.